Almost late, but not quite. And all of you are right on time. Good afternoon. Are we happy? And are we sure? And is this great? Come. The crescendo is falling off. This is a great day. It's the culmination of a great project, and there are a lot of people to thank. I want to begin by thanking the President of the United States, our friend Joe Biden. Now, the President was very, very deliberate about this and made so many trips to the Congress, both the House and Senate, to argue why this was necessary that we almost made him a member, but he didn't want to come back again. He liked his other job. Mainly, though, he had the sort of stick-to-itiveness and the determination to make sure this happened. So, President Biden, we know you're very close, and we want to let you know that we are very pleased with this bipartisan bill and what it will do particularly for Baltimore and for this tunnel. I also want to thank Steve Gardner for those very kind words of introduction and for his leadership at Amtrak. Steve and I and so many others stood here months back to talk about and to herald this project, which really had not taken off at that point, but it has now. We're going to be joined, if we haven't, by Secretary Buttigieg. Thank him, and I thank him personally for his attention to the greater Baltimore area and to the state of Maryland on so many projects. And need I say anything about the Lieutenant Governor who is just up here for her dedicated commitment and the commitment of our Governor, oh guys, you didn't have your Wheaties this morning. I don't know, Stenny, this crowd, I don't know. Governor Moore is here. He's going to be out shortly. And let me, if I might, on a point of personal privilege, just thank Donna Edwards and Courtney Jenkins and Jermaine Jones and all the men and women who represent organized labor, who've done so much to get us here, and who will build this tunnel. Now, I stood here months back with Nettie Washington Douglas, the great-granddaughter of Frederick Douglass, who had tears in her eyes at the thought that her great-grandfather's name would be a part of this, emblazoned on it, and would be the way that people recognized it well into the next century. I don't know if Nettie is here today from Atlanta, but her spirit is here, and the spirit of Frederick Douglass. So as we congratulate so many people, we want to thank the Douglass family. We want to thank Amtrak for the vision. We want to say to the neighborhoods most affected, we're going to keep an eye to make sure everything goes as it should. And we thank organized labor and, of course, our president, Joe Biden. Oh, boy. Okay. This is a test. For the next 30 seconds, we will conduct a test of the emergency notification broadcast system. And I'm going to ask you to really put your hands together for somebody who really doesn't want an introduction, but I told him backstage, I'm going to introduce you, and he in turn will introduce someone else. We represent the Maryland team in Washington, D.C., both Ben Cardin, Chris Van Hollen, and myself. It's my pleasure to bring forward Chris Van Hollen, who serves as the member on the Appropriations Committee that makes sure that so much of this funding takes place. He doesn't need an introduction, but we love him up here in Baltimore. Please give a nice round of applause for our Senator, Chris Van Hollen.
Good afternoon, Baltimore. Let's give Kwasi Mfume a big round of applause, not just for those remarks, but for the work he does every day. And I am excited to join all of you as we welcome President Biden back to Charm City. And I know the mayor and the council and everybody gathered here from Baltimore City and Baltimore County has been waiting for this very important day. I also want to salute our partners from across the state, including Governor Wes Moore, who you'll hear from shortly, and the Lieutenant Governor, Aruna Miller, and all the other state legislators who are working in Annapolis to make sure the state provides its piece of funding for this important project. If you could just join me in thanking all of them for their efforts. And to the men and women at Amtrak and the men and women at MARC who make the trains run, thank all of you for what you do every day for the millions of Americans who go through this tunnel and through this great city every day. Let's give them all a big round of applause. Thank all of you who are part of Team Amtrak and Team MARC, because what we're here to do today is talk about investments that are going to make those trains run faster, make those trains run more reliably, make those trains run more safely. And by doing that, we're going to unlock a huge amount of economic potential and opportunity right here in Baltimore City. When we say that we need to modernize our infrastructure, this tunnel is Exhibit A, the oldest tunnel in the Amtrak system. This tunnel was right there when Ulysses Grant was president of the United States. And in its current form and its current state, it causes huge, constant, and persistent delays in our system, which take thousands and thousands of hours away from people being able to spend time with their families or doing other things, and thousands and thousands of dollars of lost commerce. So what this will do is shorten the time for the fast trains, the fastest trains from Washington, D.C. to Baltimore, to a half an hour. 2.5 hours. Not only is going to save people time, it's also going to be a great economic driver for Baltimore City. And that is on top of the projects and the jobs that will be created because of this project. You heard it, 30,000 jobs, including 20,000 construction jobs under the umbrella, and this is very important, of a project labor agreement to support good paying union jobs. Many of us joined President Biden about a year ago in an ironworkers union where he announced that federal projects of significant size would all go through project labor agreements, and the president and his team are keeping their word. It is very fitting that this tunnel will be renamed in honor of Frederick Douglass. Born into slavery on Maryland's Eastern Shore, Douglass wrote in his autobiography, and I quote, "Going to Baltimore opened the gateway to all my subsequent prosperity." And of course, he ultimately took a train to freedom. Now I want to close with this point. This kind of announcement doesn't happen by accident. It doesn't just spontaneously erupt. It is the result of a determined strategy. And it's because of the passage of the bipartisan infrastructure modernization bill. And before President Biden was sworn in, we had a running joke in Washington that every week was infrastructure week. And it was a joke because everyone always talked about it, how we had to modernize infrastructure, but never actually did it. And it was after President Biden was elected that when we say every week is infrastructure week, we mean we're putting those dollars to work every day and every week in modernization projects just like this one. That's what making every week infrastructure week is all about. And that was also possible, of course, because President Biden worked with members of Congress. And we have members of our terrific team right here. You heard from Congressman Mfume. We also have Congressman Hoyer. We also have Congressman Sarbanes. I also want to thank Congressman Ruppersberger. In fact, the entire delegation in the House worked with President Biden to get this over the finish line. Thank you. Thank you all. And finally, it wouldn't have happened, of course, without the vote in the Senate, pulling together the votes in the Senate in a bipartisan way. And one of the key people in the Senate working to make sure that we got this over the finish line was somebody who serves on the Environment and Public Works Committee. In fact, he chaired the Infrastructure Subcommittee on the Environment and Public Works Committee. That's our friend, my friend, your friend, my partner in the United States Senate, Ben Cardin. Ben Cardin.
Hello, Baltimore. It's great to be here. President Biden's in the house. We welcome him back to Baltimore. I'd first want to just thank Senator Van Hollen and our entire congressional team. It's Team Maryland, and we work together as a team. You heard from Congressman Mfume. I know that we have Congressman Hoyer and Congressman Sarbanes that are here. This is Congressman Rupersberger. This is Team Maryland. And we are proud of what we've been able to deliver for the people of our state. I just want to underscore the point of what this tunnel is going to be named, Frederick Douglass. Frederick Douglass was one of the great civil rights leaders of our times. He advanced rights for all. And it's very fitting because we wouldn't be here today celebrating this tunnel if it weren't for the leadership of President Biden and his insistence that in every major initiative that we've been able to do in the Congress of the United States under President Biden, equity has been a key feature of that legislation. He wants to leave no one behind. Sounds familiar? We have leadership in Maryland that will partner with President Biden under Governor Moore. Leave no one behind, include all communities. So yes, we made sure in the infrastructure bill that we protected the rights of our workers, of our organized labor. Thank you for what you've done to build America, and thank you for what you're continuing to do for our community. And if you look at the other bills, starting with the American Rescue Plan, COVID, we protected all the communities, including those that have been left out before. State and local governments said they could do critical work. Look at what we did with the Inflation Reduction Act, with climate, helping those communities that have been left behind before, and dealing with health care costs for those who otherwise would not be able to afford that. CHIPS and Science Bill to keep technology here, to protect American workers and American ingenuity. Common theme throughout each of these programs. So I just really want to thank President Biden for his commitment to include all of us in the programs that we have. And I couldn't be more excited about Maryland's position. We were earlier today at Coppin State University where we talked about broadband. Now, broadband is in the bipartisan infrastructure bill. We talked about making sure broadband's available in all communities, including those that have been left behind before. We look at all of our programs to benefit all the people of Maryland and the nation. And with Governor Moore and Lieutenant Governor Miller, we have that team, and our controller, Brooke Learman, who's also with us, and our great mayor of Baltimore City is also with us today, Brandon Scott. It is Team Maryland, and we're going to continue to work together for all the people of our state. A great day for Baltimore. The weather is shining on us, and this is going to mean our future. And by the way, the person who knows this best is Joe Biden, because he's been stuck by the delays in this tunnel many times as a passenger of Amtrak. This tunnel will provide the future that we need in a modern way to deal with passenger rail in our community. And the way that we're protecting the freight rail, dividing it from the passenger rail, is a smart way for America's future. This is the principal bottleneck in the Northeast, and this investment will mean incredible for the transportation public getting through this area. So I'm proud to be part of this team, and now it's my pleasure to bring forward the key architect of the bipartisan infrastructure bill, the person who is responsible for delivering it to Congress and, more importantly, getting it passed in Congress, our great Secretary of Transportation, Pete Buttigieg.
I am so delighted to be here. Thank you, Senator Cardin. Thank you, Senator Van Hollen, Congressman Mfume, and all of the congressional delegation members who saw to it that we have this bipartisan infrastructure law to make these kinds of investments possible in the first place. I'm delighted to be with you in this season of action, making yet another example of what President Biden's vision for building a better America looks like come to life. We are now well into the thousands when it comes to projects that we have announced across the country. They come in all sizes, but it's safe to say this is very much one of the big ones. And I couldn't be prouder to be part of the Biden-Harris administration that has delivered historic infrastructure funding after far too much talk in infrastructure weeks coming and going in Washington without result. These results come by way of partnership from so many who helped make this a reality. And I want to thank all of the leaders from the community, from the city, from the state, again, everyone in Congress who got us here, transportation agencies, and of course the building trades for all that goes into making today possible. I'm delighted about the work that's getting underway here, an example of the investments we're seeing more and more of as we go into this, the third year of this administration and the second year since the infrastructure law came into effect. Our department focuses every day on building good things well, and this project definitely qualifies as a very good thing. I imagine the workers of 1873 who built the Baltimore and Potomac Tunnel would be proud to see their work still standing. But I imagine they would also be shocked that we haven't invested in replacing it for 150 years. Its condition today accounts for 13 hours of delays a year for a typical commuter. So it is very much time for the Frederick Douglass tunnels, which America's unions will build here and which will make travel more reliable and faster for millions of MARC and Amtrak riders along the Northeast Corridor. But we say build good things well, because it also matters how we go about building those good things. And that's what's so thrilling about today. This project labor agreement reflects the understanding that when you do these big infrastructure projects, you're not just building tunnel and track. You're building livelihoods, building futures, building the middle class with the good-paying union jobs here, with careers that can change a family's trajectory. And the unions that are here, they're going to be recruiting new workers across the Baltimore region with a focus on communities that haven't always gotten access to those good-paying jobs in America's past infrastructure investments. That's part of building good things well, too. So in our generation's answer to the New Deal or the interstate highway system, the people building today's and tomorrow's infrastructure represent the full breadth and diversity of America's talent. This agreement is going to make a big difference in this region, just as the tunnels will. And it's going to be a template used by infrastructure projects we are delivering nationwide. So just like the tunnels, it is going to have an impact far beyond where we're standing. Hundreds of thousands of Americans will build skills and wealth as they build the roads and the bridges and the rails and the airports and the tunnels that will be the foundation of American opportunity for years to come. That is what building a better America looks like. It is an honor to be part of this team with you all, and we are thrilled to be here. And with that, I have the honor of turning it over to a friend, someone who understands the importance of infrastructure and who is off to a terrific start as Maryland's governor. Please welcome Governor Wes Moore.
Good afternoon. What's going on, Maryland? We got some big news today, and first want to thank Secretary Buttigieg for the leadership, for prioritizing this issue. I was saying with the amount of times that Secretary Buttigieg and the President have been here in Maryland in recent history, we're about to make them taxpayers. But it's exciting to see what partnership looks like, what can get done when we actually start working together. And this kind of partnership that we're seeing right now between the state of Maryland, between Amtrak, between Maryland's Department of Transportation, because it has been 150 years. And it is now time. That's right. It's been 150 years, and it is now time to bring the B&P tunnel into the 21st century. I am incredibly grateful. I'm so thankful for mass transit and letting folks know and reminding people about what we're going to get done here. I'm incredibly grateful for our federal delegation as well. And I do want to take a note to say Maryland has the best federal delegation in this country, period. They are working tirelessly on our behalf. They are working in partnership, because they understand that the only way we are going to get this work done is if we get it done together. And they also understand and recognize the fact that we are all standing on the shoulders of giants. And I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge two people. One, Senator Barbara Mikulski, for the work that's been done historically on this issue. And the other is a mentor of mine, Elijah Cummings, who I know is smiling down right now as we speak and is saying, let's get these trains running. Because we know that in this state, in this time, we have no time to waste. That if you look at how the railway is even going to be renamed, going from the B&P tunnel to the Frederick Douglass tunnel, the reason that matters is this: that name was not given by accident. Because we're talking about an acknowledgement and a celebration of someone who believed that we don't have time to do right. That the time to do right is now. And the time to make this kind of investment is now. Throughout this entire campaign process, we talked about Maryland's ability to foster pathways for three different things for all Marylanders. It is work, wages, and wealth. And the thing that we know about the Frederick Douglass Tunnel, it will create pathways for all three. Create pathways where we know that construction on this tunnel alone will generate up to 30,000 jobs in the Baltimore region, 20,000 construction jobs alone, and we are talking about good, strong union jobs. That it's also sustainable, because these jobs will be spread out across a decade and will create sustainable investment inside of the region. When we say that this is going to be Maryland's decade, this is going to be a core reason why. That we know this is about bringing the possibility of high-speed rail capacity to the Northeast Corridor. That this is going to create and foster growth that's going to take place not just here, or from the BWI Thurgood Marshall Airport all the way to the Port of Baltimore. that this is an historic investment in Maryland's transportation infrastructure, and in this moment, Maryland is not going to miss this opportunity. That this is about modernizing this tunnel and bringing new opportunities to communities that have oftentimes felt left out and never felt included. That this project will enable faster and more efficient transit. A new tunnel that will build to be able to handle actual modern rail operations for increased track speeds and better trip times. And yes, when we talk about one of the key factors that all transportation items need to understand, it's also about sustainability. And it will become more sustainable because the program is a clean solution that will enhance sustainability and environmental protections with 100% electric train operation. We're excited because the future's now. And the future's Maryland's. That this becomes our time to lead, and in partnership with our federal partners, our local jurisdictions, our union members, and the people, that this is going to be Maryland's time to march forward and watch everyone else look in awe. We are so grateful for the investment that this administration is making, and so thankful that President Biden is here to talk about and celebrate and announce this. Presence matters. And the fact that the president is making such a significant investment in us, it matters. In this time, with this administration, we are going to get this done. And with President Biden's leadership, we got this done. So we're so grateful for today. We're so grateful for the ability to invest in people, invest in communities. The Frederick Douglass Tunnel Project stands as more evidence to our commitment to modernize transit, the utilization of mass transit, and making sure that it is benefiting people all throughout this state. We are building a Maryland where we leave no one behind. We are building a Maryland where we are going to be intentional about that. And we are so beyond grateful to have the president and this administration's help in fulfilling this mission. Maryland, it's our time. Maryland, this is our decade. And Maryland, this is going to be a key part of making that a distinct reality. God bless you all. And thank you so much for all your work in making this happen. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks all.
Ladies and gentlemen, the 46th President of the United States, Joe Biden.
Anytime I see a train door open, I head for it. And by the way, I can say it now since I know there's different leadership. I used to about 15% of the time ride with the engineers, for real. And I'm the only guy that I'm aware of when I stopped riding Amtrak that had a key to get in the back. So you can tell your predecessor, he's gone. Look, hello, Baltimore. Is there any organized labor and any unions in the house? You're making a run, man. Well, Brandon Scott, thank you for the passport into this great city. And Governor Wes Moore, Lieutenant Governor Miller, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you being here, and all the money you committed to make this thing work as well. And two of my best buddies in the United States Congress, I think, no hyperbole, the two of the best United States senators I've ever served with, and I served there for 36 years in the Senate, Ben Cardin and Chris Van Hollen. Ben and Chris, thank you, thank you, thank you. And Kwasi and Fumi, I tell you what, when I get in real trouble, that's the guy I call. There you are, sitting right in front. You helped us get so much of this done, including the project we're here to celebrate. Thank you. You know, look, thanks to the members of the Maryland delegation and Congressman John Sarbanes. He and his dad and I talked a lot about Amtrak, spent a lot of time working on it. Dutch, you're still here, aren't you? I saw, there you go. Hey, Dutch, good to see you. As well as Steny Hoyer, probably one of the best leaders we've ever had. Steny, you're a hell of a guy. For real. I've kid Steny for years. He represents the western shore of Delaware. We call the Delmarva Peninsula. We get into it all at any rate. Steny, you're the best and one of the greatest champions this state has ever had, and an incredible majority leader, and continues to serve Maryland very well. You know, I mean this sincerely. I don't think there's a better delegation in the entire United States of America than the delegation here in Maryland, including your state legislatures as well. And somebody who I was senior to, but never referred to me as senator, always say, Biden, come here, Barbara Mikulski. I wish Barbara here. She did a lot to make this day happen as well, all the years we worked on this. Baltimore, particularly Amtrak specifically. And finally, it's been over 3 years since, I didn't know you had seats. Man, you ought to sit down. By the way, I said when I was running in 2020 for the job, I said, everybody take their seat, and there were no seats. And the press said, he is really stupid. So I don't dare tell anybody to take a seat unless I see the chairs. But anyway, thank you. You know, it's been over 3 years since his passing, but my late friend Elijah Cummings, he's with us in spirit looking down saying, Joe, you finally got this sucker done. And the CEO, Stephen Gardner. Stephen is, he knows he got a strong support in Amtrak, probably too strong. I'm driving him nuts already. I want to get it all done quickly. And Secretary Pete Buttigieg, this is just one example of the great work you're doing, Pete. Appreciate it a lot. Let me at the outset, this is just the beginning of having a 21st century rail system that's been so long overdue in this country. Back in Delaware, I'm known for riding Amtrak, for being their senator all those years. And most of you know that as a senator, I rode the train between Washington and Wilmington and back and forth every single day that the Senate was in. And they tell me it's about average 117 days a year, about 265 miles a day. I put over 1 million miles on Amtrak. Not a joke, including as vice president. Amtrak wasn't just a way to get home, the family. The conductors, the engineers, they literally became my family. I used to have a summer party at my home in Delaware. Started off with about 10 conductors and engineers, ended up with about 70 people. They became my friends. Went to an awful lot of their children's weddings and, unfortunately, funerals of them. When I was vice president, I flew over 1 million miles on Air Force Two, and I was going home as the United States as vice president. And one of the conductors said to me, "Hey Joe, big deal, 200." You said you've traveled over 1 million miles on Amtrak. I said, "How the hell do you know that?" And they added it up at there. But folks, look, I made 1,000 trips through this tunnel, so I've been through this tunnel 1,000 times. And but when folks talk about how badly the Baltimore tunnel needs an upgrade, you don't need me to tell you. I've been there, and you've been there too. I also know that it's not just Amtrak. I know how important this tunnel is to commuter rail, and MARC rail back and forth to Washington. And I know how much it matters to the entire Northeast corridor from here to Boston, that it matters a great deal. For years, people talked about fixing this tunnel. Well, I think I made one of the few guys back in the early 80s. I actually walked into the tunnel with some of the construction workers. You ought to get inside and see it. This is a 150-year-old tunnel. You wonder how in the hell it's still standing. And with the bipartisan infrastructure law, though, we're finally getting it done. This law is the most significant investment in American roads, bridges, since the interstate highway system. And it's the single most significant investment in rail in America since Amtrak was created 50 years ago. And through the infrastructure law, we're going to invest over $4 billion to replace the existing Baltimore and Potomac tunnel. And that's why it's so important. Over 2,200 trains run on this corridor every single day, and it's the busiest in the United States and one of the busiest corridors in the world. The problem anywhere along the line means up and down the East Coast, it means commuters are trying to get to and from work, and they're getting in trouble. Business trying to ship their goods, travelers trying to visit family. If this line shuts down, it's just one day, it would cost the country over $100 million. But this tunnel is a major checkpoint for 9 million Amtrak and MARC commuter rail passengers who pass through it each and every year. 1.4 mile stretch with tight curves, so the trains have to slow to 30 miles an hour. You probably all heard this already, but it's important. 99% of the weekdays there's been a delay here somewhere. Trust me, I know. This tunnel is nearly, as I said, 150 years old. This is a Civil War era. Ulysses S. Grant was president. The structure is deteriorating. The roof is leaking. The floor is sinking. This is the United States of America, for God's sake. We know better than that. We know we have to prove we're much better than that. Funding from the infrastructure law will fully replace this tunnel. And we're naming the new tunnel after Frederick Douglass, who boarded this train to freedom right here in Baltimore. And he escaped slavery. He traveled the country by rail, fighting for abolition and civil rights. So that's fitting we honor him in this way. Frederick Douglass. Look, we have a lot to do. When the project is done, new trains will travel through this tunnel at 110 miles an hour instead of 30 miles an hour. MARC trains will go from here to Washington in 30 minutes. On an average weekday, that'll eliminate nearly 7 hours a day. The Frederick Douglass Tunnel will be all electric, and we will continue to invest in rail to make it easier for people to use its potential to take thousands of vehicles off the highways, including the interstate, and save millions of barrels of oil, reducing pollution. All the studies show if you can get from point A to point B by rail faster than you can by automobile, you take the rail. This is going to be a game changer for the environment as well. And so this is what we're doing across the country, not just here. Tomorrow I'll be in New York for a similar announcement, the Hudson Tunnel Project and a critical juncture in the Northeast Corridor. Earlier this month I was in Kentucky with the Republican leader, and they're standing there, and the Republican governor and also Democratic leaders. Over $1 billion is being spent on the Brent Spence Bridge over the Ohio River connecting Ohio and Kentucky. We're repairing the original bridge and building an entirely new one parallel to it. Each day, trucks carry about $2 billion worth of freight across that bridge from Florida to Canada. And it was built 60 years ago. Folks have been talking about fixing it for decades, but now we're finally going to get it done. And we're not stopping there. We're closing the digital divide. Nearly 175,000 households in Maryland who haven't had access to high-speed internet are now getting access to it through this infrastructure law, bipartisan infrastructure law. And our broadband program is estimated to create 200,000 jobs across the country just putting it in the ground. And it's all union work. And today, we're announcing a nearly $4 million grant to the great HBCU in Baltimore, Coppin State University, to buy new laptops to give students digital skills and training that they need to compete in today's workplace. The Army Corps of Engineers spends millions each year dredging to keep shipping channels clear of the Port of Baltimore and help bring larger ships and more cargo in and out of Maryland. Now, we're investing another $84 million in infrastructure law to take the dredged material and restore the mid-bay islands on the Chesapeake, a critical habitat for fish and shellfish and birds. And these islands are central to the fishing and tourist industry. There's a lot we're going to get done. And one of the things about the infrastructure law I'm most excited about is we're doing all this with workers, with products made in America, with union labor. In fact, today we're announcing this project will be built under a project labor agreement. These agreements are agreements that contractors and unions put in place before the construction begins. They ensure major projects are handled by well-trained, highly skilled union workers, resolve disputes ahead of time, ensuring safer work sites, avoiding disruptions and work stoppages that can cause expensive delays down the line. So they're not just good workers, they're good taxpayers too. Amtrak and the building trades have agreed that the project labor agreement will be in place not just here in Baltimore, but all across major rail construction projects up and down the Northeast Corridor. And the Baltimore Tunnel project will lead to 20,000 good-paying construction jobs. Laborers, electricians, carpenters, cement masons, ironworkers, operating engineers, and so much more. These are good jobs you can raise a family on. And most don't require a college degree, but they do require the equivalent of a college degree. You have to have 4 to 5 years of an apprenticeship. That's one of the reasons they're the best trained workers in the world, the best in the world. I've been saying that my whole career, and it's true. These are jobs for folks I used to think about as I took the train home at night, going through the stretches of suburban Maryland, suburban Baltimore, and look out the window, see the flickering lights on people's tables. Not a joke. I used to look at them and just wonder what their conversations were at their kitchen table, their dining room table. What were they thinking about just before or after they put their kids to bed? Asking questions that are ordinary and profound. We're gonna have enough money left over, honey, at the end of the month, after we pay our bills, just have a little bit of breathing room. My dad used to say, you know, Joey, a job's about a lot more than a paycheck. It's about your dignity. It's about respect. It's about being able to look your kid in the eye and say, honey, it's going to be, I mean this sincerely, it's going to be okay, and mean it. Well, guess what, folks? Too many people have been left behind in the past. They're treated like they're invisible amid the economic upheaval of the past 4 decades. They remember the jobs that went away and wonder whether a path exists anymore for them to succeed. But I know we can forge a path of building an economy where no one's left behind. That's what this project and others like it across the country are all about. It's about making investments in America's cities, towns, heartlands, and rural America. It's about making things here in America again. It's about good jobs. It's about the dignity of work. It's about respect and self-worth. And it's about damn time we're doing it. We're going through 4 decades where we exported jobs and imported product. We're exporting product and importing jobs now. For too long, we've talked about asserting America's leadership and building the best economy in the world. Well, we have to have the best economy in the world, you have to have the best infrastructure in the world. That's not hyperbole, it's a fact. To get products to market, to create thousands of good-paying jobs. For most of the last century, we led the world by a significant margin because we invested in our people, we invested in ourselves, we invested in research and development. But along the way, we stopped. We used to rank number 1 in the world in research and development. Now we rank number 9. China used to rank number 8. Now it ranks number 2. The risk of losing our edge as a nation and China and the rest of the world catching up is real. For decades, the backbone of America, the middle class, has been hollowed out. Too many good-paying manufacturing jobs moved overseas because labor was cheaper. Jobs moved overseas and factories closed down. Once thriving cities and towns became shadows of themselves, what they used to be. When Carrier, one of the biggest manufacturers in Syracuse, New York, stopped making air conditioners, the town went in decline. Now, Micron's enormous investment of semiconductors in Syracuse is bringing it all back and more. Same thing's happened in Lordstown, Ohio, when GM shut down their auto factory. But this past year, thanks to all we're doing with electric vehicles, GM and LG announced they'll hire thousands of workers to build the new electric vehicle batteries. And when these towns were hollowed out, something else was lost. Their pride, their sense of self-esteem. Folks, these are the effects of the so-called trickle-down economics. The view from Park Avenue that says, when the wealthy do well, it will all trickle down to everybody else. Not in the family I was raised, it didn't work that way. But there's another one that I hold, that folks in Baltimore hold as well. Our folks in cities were born in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and grew up in Claymont, Delaware like I did. They view the backbone of America. They are the backbone. They're the people who get up every morning and go to work just to bust their necks trying to make an honest living. Look, folks, I've said it many times. Wall Street did not build this country. The middle class built this country. And unions built the middle class. That's a fact. I ran for president to build an economy from the bottom up and the middle out. To bring back good-paying jobs you can raise a family on, whether or not you went to college. To give working families a little more breathing room. To invest in ourselves again. To invest in America again. And that's what we've done. My first 2 years in office, we have 2 of the strongest years of economic growth and job growth in American history. We've created 11 million new jobs, including 750,000 manufacturing jobs, and we're just getting started. Where in God's name is it written that America can't lead the world in manufacturing again? I don't know where that's written. In addition, there's been major private investment, totaling nearly $300 billion in American manufacturing, including for semiconductors and small computer chips that power virtually everything in our lives, from cell phones to automobiles to artificial intelligence. You know, what a lot of people don't remember or don't know, we invented the computer chip in America. We invented it, and we made it more sophisticated. 30 years ago, America had more than 30% of the global chip production, worth tens of billions of dollars. But today, we produce only around 10% of the world's chips. Instead of the supply chain for these chips starting with us, it starts with countries you can't rely on. New automobiles need 3,000 of these chips just to be made. When overseas factories make these chips shut down during the pandemic, automakers in America had to shut down their product lines too. We couldn't produce enough cars because we didn't have enough chips. We can't ever let that happen again. That's why we came together to pass the Bipartisan Chips and Science Act, and we're seeing the results now. Just a few hours north of here, IBM invested $20 billion in its facility in Poughkeepsie, New York, in semiconductor design and manufacturing, quantum computing, artificial intelligence. Intel is investing $20 billion building 2 chip factories, fabrication facilities, just outside of Columbus, Ohio. $100 billion with Micron in Syracuse, $40 billion with TMSC in Phoenix. Our economic agenda has ignited a boom in manufacturing, from semiconductors to electric vehicles to advanced batteries. They're going to power those vehicles, and in addition to that, anybody from the IBW here? 500,000 charging stations you're going to build in America so you can go from coast to coast to coast. Look, there's much more to say about what we're going to be doing to modernize American rail. Let me close with this, because if we don't get it by a quarter after, we're all here for the next 2 hours. Almost. When America sees these projects popping up across the country, it sends a really important message. When we work together, there's not a damn thing we can't do. There's nothing beyond our capacity. We can move this. We can move this nation forward. And it sends another message as well. A message of pride. Pride in our country. Pride in what we can do when we do it together. You've heard me say it, and I apologize for repeating, but as long as I'm here, I'm going to say it. That has never been a good bet. Never been a good bet to bet against America. Never. I can honestly say, as I stand here today, I have never been more optimistic about America's future. You just have to remember who in God's name we are. We're the United States of America. There's nothing beyond our capacity when we work together. We've never failed to meet an objective when we set our mind to it. So it's about time we say, once again, we're going to lead the world in the second quarter of the 21st century. May God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Thank you, thank you, thank you.